Hey, I'm Shayna, and I am here at Feeding America Eastern Wisconsin with some helpers in the test kitchen. And we are going to make for you right now some chicken soup. Chicken noodle soup, just chicken soup, chicken vegetable soup, kind of whatever you have is what we're gonna make. We have noodles, and we have vegetables, and we have chicken, so that's what it's gonna be. And I'm gonna introduce my helpers to you before I get too far. And my helpers are Piper and Carter and Sawyer. And so we're all gonna be doing a couple of things. The idea here is that you can have your kids help you make some food. And you can make that food and those meals with items that you can find possibly in your garden if you're growing some vegetables this year, and even maybe a couple of things that you can find at the grocery store. Realistically, you can use a combination of whatever you have on hand. First thing you're gonna wanna do is put some vegetables in here and kind of get them sauteing first. So we're gonna chop up some celery and get that in here, and that's where we'll start. And while she is doing that, I'm just gonna talk to you a little bit about the other ingredients that we have. We are actually using canned chicken. Canned chicken is totally a pantry item. You could use any kind of chicken. You could also use turkey. You could also use any other meat that you might have had on hand. Doesn't matter, but this is what we have right now. Canned chicken comes kind of soaked in this water and juice and some other things. I'm gonna choose not to have that in this recipe, so we're actually just gonna rinse this with some cold water, and then we're gonna get that in the pot as well. It's kind of weird that I'm touching the pot and the stove might be on, but it's not. Don't worry about me, I'm safe. Don't do this at home when your stove is on. After we chop the celery, we're gonna chop some onions, and we're gonna get that in here as well. Most chicken soup has carrots. That's something that's very common. We happen to not have fresh carrots right now, and we're gonna work with fresh vegetables. A super great alternative, if you don't have fresh vegetables on hand, would be any sort of vegetable medley that you might have frozen, or honestly, even canned. All of that would work. So whatever you have can go in that soup. All of us have had a veggie soup, maybe not always with chicken, but it can totally fly. And what's neat about soup is that you can make a whole lot of it all at one time. It's great for leftovers, it keeps for a while. It's definitely something that's easy to make. We also did our noodles ahead of time, so they are ready to go in there. Probably about 3-4 cups of cooked pasta. Beautiful. So we've got some chicken, and we've got our celery. And then why don't you continue and chop up that onion, and we'll get that in here too. Okay, guys, I'm gonna turn the stove on. Are you ready? I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna turn the stove on. I think it's good. So just know that it's warm here, but you're safe. Having friends and your kids help you make a meal like this is really cool. Giving them some advice and some instruction and having them make it ahead of time or while you're still at work is also something that's really nice. These meals are easy enough that your kids can totally help you. So we cut the onion in half, all right? That's the easiest way to go about doing an onion. You can use red onion, you can use white onion, you can use a yellow onion. They all have a little bit varying flavor, but not very much. So now that the onion is peeled, that we took the skin off of the outside, we're just gonna chop it. In addition to what we have in here, we are gonna put in garlic powder. You could use fresh garlic, you could use garlic powder. If you use garlic salt, just keep in mind that that's gonna add extra salt to your dish, so then just make sure before you add any of salt of your own, that it's not too salty. Oh, we've got some noises coming from in here. And again, amounts are totally to your taste. Thyme is an herb. You can find it dried or you can find it fresh, depending on if you do herbs in the summer. And what's neat about it is that it is a really good friend of chicken. So when you're making a soup with chicken or any other chicken dish, using thyme, dried or fresh, is just something that's really gonna pair well with it, and it's gonna bring out some good flavor in the chicken, and so that's why we have it in our soup. If we were making this for real, and we were gonna be standing in front of the camera for like 45 minutes or so, that's about how long I would probably let some of this cook. I would do the vegetables before I added anything else for maybe 5 to 7 minutes. Just kind of get the celery and the carrots and the onion or whatever vegetables you're working with a little bit tender. You can put as much in as you'd like. So if you have a bunch of chicken and you want to put a ton of vegetables in stock in, you can do that. If you have a little bit less, then you just put a little less in. Again, we could definitely leave this cook for a little while so your onions soften up a little bit. Once you get to the point where your vegetables are just a little bit tender, you're gonna start to add the other stuff. So we're gonna add in our chicken stock. Some people take the time to boil chicken bones and make their own stock. And already the stove is nice and quiet because there's that cold stock in there. So we're gonna add our noodles in. Again, you can pre-cook them if you decide not to pre-cook them and you put them right in your soup. Just make sure that you have enough moisture, enough water in there so that the noodles can cook without it taking all of the water out of your soup. So we're gonna put these right in. I do. Why don't you scoot over and stir that? You could totally add salt, pepper, you could add hot sauce, you could add other seasonings that you think are good. Again, you can cook with your nose, so if it starts to smell nice, then you're probably gonna have good flavor, give it a taste, and you can always add more. So just take it slow in the beginning and then add based on how it tastes. Now, any good soup cooker knows that the more that it sits on the stove and kind of simmers, the more flavor you're gonna have in that soup. So it would be completely appropriate to put this down to a lower temperature and leave it sit for maybe 45 minutes or so. If you're in a rush, it's gonna taste good right away, so you could definitely eat it right away, but if you have the time to let it simmer, it's only gonna get more flavor. If you do plan on cooking a little bit more and you wanna leave the noodles out so that they don't sit, say you're gonna keep it for a week because you're making a whole bunch of soup. Those noodles sitting in there over that course of a week are gonna kinda keep getting fuller and fuller and fuller, and they may be too much. So you could always keep the noodles separate in your refrigerator. You can add them to the soup as you eat it, and that way you don't have to worry about your noodles getting kinda squishy because nobody likes a squishy noodle. But otherwise, this is how you make chicken soup with pantry items. It's pretty easy, it doesn't take too long. Clearly, my helpers were critical to us completing this recipe. And we're here at Feeding America, Eastern Wisconsin, and thank you so much.